was the breastplate of judgment to look like? This is the question that we seek to answer today as we continue our verse-by-verse study of the book of Exodus on walking through the Bible.
Of his word, the glory of his cross.
If you have a Bible with you, you can turn to Exodus 28. We're going to be reading from verses 15 to 25. If you don't have a Bible, don't worry. Just follow along with us on the screen. The version that we'll be reading from is the New King James Version. So, Exodus 28, beginning at verse 15. You shall make the breastplate of judgment, artistically woven according to the workmanship of the ephod, you shall make it. Of gold, blue, purple, and scarlet thread, and fine woven linen, you shall make it. It shall be doubled into a square. A span shall be its length, and a span shall be its width. And you shall put settings of stone in it. 4 rows of stones. The first row will be a sardius, a topaz, and an emerald. This shall be the first row. The second row shall be a turquoise, a sapphire, and a diamond. The third row a jacinth, an agate, and an amethyst. And the fourth row a beryl, an onyx, and a jasper. They shall be set in gold settings. And the stones shall have the names of the sons of Israel, 12 according to their names, like the engravings of a signet, each one with its own name. They shall be according to the 12 tribes. You shall make chains for the breastplate at the end, like braided cords of pure gold. And you shall make 2 rings of gold for the breastplate, and put the 2 rings on the 2 ends of the breastplate. Then you shall put the 2 braided chains of gold in the 2 rings which are on the ends of the breastplate. And the other 2 ends of the 2 braided chains you shall fasten to the 2 settings, and put them on the shoulder straps of the ephod in the front. In this chapter, we see the institution of the priesthood for Israel being described. The house of Aaron from the tribe of Levi were selected to be priests, with Aaron serving as the first high priest. It would be the duties of the priests to work in the tabernacle and offer the sacrifices of the tabernacle. As priests, God desired that they wear special clothing so as to separate them from among the rest of the people. Up until verse 39, we find the garments of the high priest, in this case being Aaron, being described. In our last episode, we discussed the ephod, with what fabric it was to be made, how it was to be fastened together, and what was to be placed on it. Today we continue talking about the ephod, focusing on the breastplate of judgment that was to be placed on it. Why is it called the breastplate of judgment? That will be discussed in verse 30, so we'll leave those comments until then. A breastplate is worn on the chest, so that is where this item was going to be placed on the ephod. It would be made of the same material as the ephod, namely fine woven linen of gold, blue, purple, and scarlet thread. It was to be doubled into a square to be about a span in length, meaning about 22.86 centimeters or 9 inches. There has been plenty of discussion as to why this piece was to be doubled, some saying that it added more strength because we're about to see that 12 stones were going to be attached to it. Others say what it means is that this formed a pocket for the items we read of in verse 30. So which is it? My response simply is, why can't it be both? Doubling over the cloth will give it more strength for sure, and from the language in verse 30, it also appeared to have a pocket, so accepting both explanations would be firmly in line with what the scripture is telling us here. As we said earlier, upon the breastplate was to be placed 12 stones. Now there is much debate as to what these stones actually were, seeing as how the ancients did not possess the tools to engrave on some of these stones, like diamond. To that I say the following. First, the ancients may have called these stones something different to what we would call them. For instance, we call these large, now extinct reptiles, whose fossils we find all over this globe, dinosaurs. However, that is simply a name that we gave them. Other cultures, should they have found these fossils, might have called them something else. So seeing gems like diamonds or topaz or sapphire doesn't necessarily mean that that is what we would call them today. It, however, would have been what Israel called them, hence why our translations have translated them this way. However, suppose we are talking about the same gems. Although the ancients on the whole may not have been able to engrave on them, we're talking about an infinite, all-powerful God. It is well within his power to give the engravers the ability to engrave on those hard stones if he so desired. So whichever is true, it shouldn't shake our faith in the accuracy of the Bible, even if we don't completely understand. These stones were to be placed into gold settings, following a specific order outlined by God. On each stone, one of the names of the children of Israel was to be placed. On which stone each name was placed is not specifically given, so it would be useless to speculate. That the high priest wore the names of the 12 tribes of Israel close to his heart might have been to symbolize God's affection for his people. On the end of the breastplate, 2 braided gold chains would be fastened into 2 gold rings on the breastplate, while the other end would be fastened to the settings in the shoulder of the ephod. From verse 14, we saw that there were 2 other gold chains that were to be made and fastened to the shoulder setting as well. So the conclusion that can be drawn is that there were 4 chains in total, 2 on each side of the breastplate, connecting the breastplate to the ephod. What might this have looked like? Here is a picture of what this might have looked like, but again, we stress this is only a possible representation, as we do not know for sure. With that, our time is up for today. Lord willing, we hope you'll join us for tomorrow's discussion of Exodus chapter 28, verses 26 to 30, as we continue our walk through the Bible, one verse at a time.
I'm not ashamed.
Thank you for watching today's episode. We hope that you found it edifying and ask that you not only subscribe to our channel and podcast, but that you like and share this episode among your friends, so that the saving gospel of Jesus Christ can go out to the whole world.
Of his cross.